Hello everyone, I'd like to read to you from my story, Eagle's Beak and Wings of Bronze, or Something Unusual Happens to Alice. This appeared in 1995 in Realms of Fantasy magazine. Let's see if I can do that. Yes. And it was a hoot to write, and I hope that you enjoy it. Here we go. One summer afternoon, Lady Caroline hitched up her skirts, rolled 2 vinegar barrels into the corner of the cool stone-floored herbarium, and sat down for a private chat with her daughter Alice. "You're almost a woman, my dear, and it's time you learned the family secret. The truth is, we're where." Alice's soft hazel eyes wandered to the hanging bundles of rosemary and feverfew. "Where?" "Not where, where." Lady Caroline sighed. Her sons were small and lean, as black-eyed and quick-tempered as she, while her only daughter— "Where," she repeated, speaking slowly so Alice could understand, "as in werewolves, but not until your woman's cycles come, and almost certainly not a wolf. I'm not, and neither is your Aunt Jessie. Our family tradition has always been far more imaginative." Alice heard the sigh and the patience in her mother's voice. Drifting on the patter of words, she guessed that something was going to happen to her, something that involved turning into an animal. Not a wolf, for she wasn't nearly clever enough to be a wolf. Something slow and sleepy like she felt right now. A lizard dozing in the sun? A turtle on a log? Oh, dear! Suppose she became a weird turtle and nibbled on ants' eggs. When she turned back into a girl, would the eggs still be inside her stomach? "Just come to me when something unusual happens," Lady Caroline said. "Unusual, like being able to read Latin?" Alice sighed. With her wits, she would probably end up as a cockroach. For the next 2 years, nothing went right at the manor. After a terrible wheat harvest, the Duke conscripted half the fieldmen for his latest campaign. The oldest brother married, and Alice never knew what to say in those all-too-frequent occasions when his new wife, Ivy, would jab her with an elbow and say, "So what does the dummy think about that?" The next spring, the Duke died, and his younger brother became regent and promptly started another campaign, so there were more conscriptions. It took 3 more years for Alice to begin her woman's cycles, and when she finally did, nothing happened. "Sometimes it skips a generation," Lady Caroline murmured, as she went off to deal with the holes in the bed-sheets before Ivy could order new linens. Alice didn't mind not becoming a weir goose or a weir sheep. Life was complicated enough once her sister-in-law started having babies, 1 every year. "Let the dummy look after them," Ivy said. So Alice did, and discovered she liked babies. Human babies, calves, foals, goslings, it didn't matter. They all ran to her when they were hurt or needed comforting. It soon became obvious that the manor was too small to be divided among the 3 sons, especially if they were as prolific as the oldest. The youngest brother went off to college in Oxford, much to everyone's relief. But the middle son showed no sign of going anywhere, and every sign of courting the neighbor's buxom, dowryless daughter. It was time for another talk in the herbarium. "Lord Talbot has made an offer for you for his 3rd son." Lady Caroline tucked back a few newly gray hairs. "They've got plenty of lands." Alice gathered that she was being sent away. "I'll miss the babies." "Only until you start having some of your own." Alice brightened. "That would be nice." "It's all settled then." Alice was packed off on a white mule, accompanied by 2 men-at-arms, the cook's assistant for a chaperone, and a donkey to carry her 2 small trunks. She enjoyed ambling through the countryside, along fields of ripening millet. Gradually the country became wilder as they climbed through pine-wooded hills. The men touched their sword hilts and looked nervous as the sun sank lower. Allis wrapped herself tighter in her cloak. Now that they were past the sunlit fields, she began to feel dreadfully homesick. Although the sky was not yet dark, a full moon had risen. If only, she thought, she were beautiful like the upstairs parlor maid, or were smart enough to go to college like her brother. Lost in thought, Allis had wandered far from the others. She noticed now how quiet the forest was. The night birds had disappeared, and her mule came to a halt, head up and long ears quivering. Then she heard it too. A noise, a very strange noise, a burbling, boiling noise, and it was coming straight toward her. The mule leapt into the air, reversed fore and rear quarters, and took off at an astonishing pace, leaving Allis on her back in a particularly thorny clump of brush. She managed, at the cost of some nasty scratches and considerable damage to her clothing, to sit up. The next moment the crashing, roaring noise was directly above her. Everything went sweet and dreamy and vivid all at once. For the first time, Allis noticed the arrangement of the tree branches and felt their slow, green thoughts. She wondered what marvelous things they'd dreamed over the centuries. A dragon landed on the path in front of her. The warmth that radiated from his shimmering red-gold scales was like sunshine on pearls. His breath hinted of the liquid hearts of volcanoes, and his tourmaline eyes glittered with tantalizing mysteries. "The Virgin!" he rumbled. "What have you done with the Virgin?" Allis arranged her bronze wings gracefully along her back and coiled her tail 3 times, so the tuft made an attractive design next to her muscular haunches. A civilized conversation is usually initiated by a greeting such as "salutations of the evening," she remarked. "Or perhaps, if you were in a poetic mood, you might present me with an extemporaneously composed sonnet." The dragon blinked, steam issuing from its nostrils. "I want the Virgin." "There's no person of such singular chastity of either gender present. Only the 2 of us, and I assume you exclude yourself from nomination. My own sexual experience, or lack thereof, is not a suitable topic for public discussion." As she spoke, Allis extended her 4 claws, which were as sharp as the dragon's. The dragon outweighed her, being as large as 2 cart horses, while she was only the size of a pony, but she was equally agile on the ground and in the air. The dragon arched its sinuous neck. "Your pardon, my Lady Griffin. My discourtesy comes from a predicament of a personal nature, and not from any distaste for your company. No insult was intended." "And none was taken," Allis replied graciously. With her eagle's beak, she couldn't manage a normal smile. He curled the corners of his mouth in a dragonish grin. "Nothing would delight me more than to regale you with how the dragon prince stole wisdom from the sun, or the singing rubies of Casimir in iambic pentameter." "Iambic pentameter, really? How exquisite!" "Alas, I have an urgent task elsewhere." Moonlight glimmered on the dragon's scales as, with one bound, he hurled himself into the starry sky. Allis watched the intricately veined wings spread wide to catch the thermal currents. She sighed, for the rabbits cowering behind the nearby thickets would make poor conversation. What marvels this dragon must have seen, and what wonderful stories it could tell. She itched all over with curiosity. She got to her feet and padded along the forest floor, distracting herself with the rich scents and textures. When the moon set, she curled up, wings furled and tail coiled neatly, and fell asleep. Allis awoke with stickers in her hair and dew on her clothes. In the distance, she heard voices calling her name. She got up, brushed off the twigs, and headed in that direction. The cook's assistant chattered, so Allis could hardly understand her, but she slowly realized that the more she stood there, with a blank expression on her face, the more the cook's assistant fussed. It had never occurred to Allis that she might have any influence over other people. For her entire life, everyone else had been smarter and more confident than she. They certainly all talked faster. Allis said, totally untruthfully, "I'm so glad you found me." The cook's assistant gave her a tearful hug and a hot breakfast. "We were that worried for you, miss, all alone in these terrible woods. And that dragon, I was sure you'd be eaten alive." Dragon. Allis envisioned a sinuous creature all red and gold, wondrous, mysterious, and yet oddly preoccupied. And she couldn't imagine being frightened of it. So that's that. And if I can find the picture, the illustration, there we go. Let's see if you can see that, which I think is rather wonderful. Although it does look like Allis is wearing her nightgown. Anyway, this is available now for pre-order from Amazon and I think Barnes & Noble. It will be available on Google Play and Kobo and from Overdrive, so your public library could order it for you. I hope you enjoy it, and please let me know what you think.